So really, the implication is if you leave students to their own devices, they're going to use Twitter and other social technologies in ways that are beneficial to them, and they're going to use it in ways that are detrimental to them. But if you can co-opt the technologies and integrate the things you want to integrate it in it for educational purposes, you can co-opt them to actually have an effect on their engagement, their grades, all these great academic outcome variables. So from this, and I'm developing more effective practices, these are the few that I've been thinking of lately, is that it's important to engage with students, right? I've always thought about this in the classroom. For me, education is a relationship. If I don't know you, I can't be of maximum benefit to you in the classroom. So I'm not the biggest fan of the large lecture size class. And my students know this about me. And they, I mean, you know, once they leave the class, they're like, wow, you were really up in our sauce. Yeah, I'm really up in your sauce. You want to integrate course content into using Twitter. I called this the ultimate Jedi mind trick, right? I was like, look, new shiny, we're using Twitter. Let's talk about class now, right? So you definitely want to integrate course content and make the Twitter feed part of your effective educational practices. So if you are effectively challenging students in the classroom, you want to effectively challenge them on Twitter. You want to translate that into the digital world because of all the connections there. You want to encourage collaborative learning. Set the tone, set the stage, so the students will collaborate with each other and will collaborate with you. Some of this stuff was great. It just took off on its own. In study number 1, there was this scary but neat thing that happened. One student posted something, a tweet about wanting to harm himself, and then another student popped in and said, hey, you know, doesn't sound like you're doing too well. They didn't know each other. And they were from, you know, 2 kind of cliques. You know, students are still kind of cliquey in their first year. They were from 2 cliques that, you know, probably wouldn't be hanging out together. They had a conversation in public on Twitter, and it was, I think, good enough to get us to where we noticed and brought the original student in to talk to about what was going on, because, you know, you take that kind of stuff seriously. So I thought that that was quite a powerful intervention that we were only part of at the end, right? And that's it. So question time, fun time. All right. So in the back, saw his hand go up first. Yeah.
Basically what you're saying is in study 2, the real importance is basically study 1 showing that it's the professor's assessment, it's the interaction,
yeah.
the prompting. So those instructional prompts in the first design, why would you use Bing as the control? Why don't you use, like, you sort of combine those two to have the control group be Twitter without instruction, without guidance and prompting, and the experimental group with those instructors?
Absolutely good point. I have, he talked about why different control groups. Study 2 was really the second one we ran, right? I mean, so I presented them temporally, right? A little bit backwards than people usually do stuff, right? You do stuff that's less controlled, and then you do stuff that's more controlled. But so we didn't, know that at first. We wanted it to be as equal on everything, and we only had one shot at this. We only had 7 sections, right? So we're looking at power, too. In a perfect world, I've applied for some National Science Foundation funding. If they can give me the dough, I have literally 6 control groups up here that I would like to run, right? I also have some ideas about looking at actual class engagement, so really in vivo qualitative stuff, and if NSF gives me funding, I can actually pay someone to be the qualitative person on the team. Yeah. Yes, the instructional prompts were. Everything, all of these instructional prompts were the same between the Twitter group and the Ning group. What wasn't different is the process. The process was crazy engaged with this loop of engagement because students were bringing us in. While we would, we might post something on Twitter, and get, whatever, 10, 15 responses, right away, and then maybe some others later, and then, we'd respond back. On Ning, if we got, what was the number? Of our Ning post, 1% of the comments to our Ning post were responses. And I can't remember the exact number. Please look at the paper for the exact number of @replies, but I noted how many @replies. If you want, I can look it up afterwards, but it was, okay, just throwing it out there here, I think it was like 38% were @replies to us.
So is that an issue of the platform thing, though, in that maybe students didn't get it, it's comfortable for them? How do you control for that?
We're currently collecting qualitative data. We're interviewing students because we have, I have not announced this publicly before. We looked at second-year persistence. So are the students still in school a year later? And the Twitter group has significantly higher persistence than the control group. So for a next paper, we're currently interviewing the students that were in the Twitter group and engaged, in the control group engaged, in both groups non-engaged, and students who left to find out more. This is going to take a little while to get to it, but we are going to get to that. Yeah, sure. Back there and then up here. Yeah, you want to know that, don't you?
The second one is, did you protect that classroom Twitter account so that the sections that were the Ning sections couldn't access it?
Yes. Ning sections, there was no bleed over. A couple things we checked. We did some checking for methodological robustness. No students used Twitter at the beginning of the semester. At the end of the semester, only people in the experimental group used Twitter. None of the control students used Twitter. We got lucky, right? And I was just, using Twitter at all. They didn't use Twitter at all, so that was good. The other thing was that I should say that we did some checks on the randomization, and both groups were equal on engagement score at the pretest. They were also equal on, we defined academic ability as high school GPA, and they were equal on high school GPA as well. So, we wanted to make sure that in our randomization, we didn't get a group of students that was, actually more motivated or smarter or some other variable that we would think would be important in terms of engagement or grades. Okay? Damn, I'm slick. I didn't even know I was being slick. Lexamancer. Lexamancer. Leximancer. It's a web-based platform, and they also have a desktop app, and it's expensive. They gave me a free trial. I hope they're not listening to this, right? They gave me a free trial for 1 week, right? They have this academics free trial for a week, right? And like my friend said, export, export, export. I'm like, I guess I got to pay for a month at some point to write this paper, but I'm just going to try. I'm going to try not to have to. So, yes. Good cat. I don't remember, but I think the academic is like $380 a month for academicians. Yikes. I know. So, I get on BitTorrent, and I'm looking for the app. Shit ain't there.
My question's about the second study. You were saying that you didn't find the relationship that you found in the first study.
Right.
And some of the things that you were just talking about, all the things that you controlled for in the first study, the outcome measurement, were you looking just at the post-test engagement scores, or were you looking at change scores?
Change scores. There are different scores.
Then what I'm thinking is, if you're looking at different scores, you're running into students who are already engaged being the ones to pick up tweeting. Like, one of my favorite Aston findings is that students who drink are more likely to be retained.
Mm-hmm.
So the answer isn't we should give them all beer, but it's that third variable, right? It's
Yeah.
that those are the students who are going to parties and they're drinking
Mm-hmm.
and becoming engaged and being retained. So I'm wondering if it's the students who are already prone to be engaged look up and go, oh, a hashtag, I should check that out, and
Mm-hmm.
you're picking up that second half of students, and that's where you're getting the change.
Sure.
But you're not getting that in the second study because you let them self-select.
Well, and that's the interesting point, right? Because if the students are these, if that's the variable, right? They're more engaged to begin with, you expect a higher increase.
Right. Well,
No?
if they're more engaged to begin with, you expect a higher. I mean, only if that's if it's a.
Engagement isn't static, right? As you saw in the controlled one where we anally controlled everything, the control group's engagement did increase. It didn't increase as much as the experimental group, but it did increase.
Right. I'm just saying when you're looking at the change scores that you might get that increase, but not a statistically.
So you're okay. The power might not be there, is what you're saying. Possibly. I haven't had enough time to swim in the data yet to know.
I would look at how much is that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, in theory, if you're measuring students on a GPA increase and you had a self-selected group that all started with A's.
Absolutely. And like I said, we don't have the GPA data for this group yet. So we're going to try to get at that, right, at the why for this group. I mean, the most interesting question for me is what you're asking. What is it about the students that picked up on the Twitter thing? Right? That's what I want to know. What is it about them that picked up on the Twitter thing? And I think, this drives me nuts because I get so expansive, right? There are all these variables. My background's in psychology, so I think of all these motivational variables, all these kinds of psychosocial things. One of my back burner projects is looking at the constructs of extroversion and introversion and openness and how those are related to what you're doing online. So there's been a little bit of work on that on Facebook, but they only looked at like extroversion versus introversion and number of Facebook friends. I want to look at, dial it down or dial it up a little bit and look at some more nuanced measures there. Yes?
Did you do any network mapping of this?
No.
See the ecosystem. And then did you find in the second study that you gathered people outside your class who came to the conversation? Or did you find that the conversation in the open Twitter world stayed just within the family?
I'm not sure what that question is.
Did you find that it attracted attention of other people in the Twitter community that glommed on to the conversation?
A little bit, not a lot. Not a lot. It wasn't promoted as a hashtag, right? This one was open, whereas the first study was not. And no, I mean, we had, I think the number was 3 or 4 people who weren't in the class who tweeted as part of the class. So not very, but then again, I mean, it all has to do with hashtags, right? I've been drawn into some class hashtags before, like, hey, Ray Junco is doing this research. Hey, Ray, do you want to come answer some questions on, hash edu 108 or something like that? I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll go do that. But we didn't really promote it.